One. Okay, hold on. Okay, hi there. My name's Renee Hobbs, and welcome to LSC 531 at the Harrington School of Communication and Media's Library and Information Studies program. My name is Renee Hobbs, and tonight we are. It is July 2nd, I believe. I believe it's July 2nd, and we're steaming through the summer with Hi Min, Jane, Lisa, and if you're watching us asynchronously, we're delighted to have you. Let me talk a little bit about what we're going to try to move through in tonight's class. We're going to spend some time talking a little bit about our experience writing the research review, because it looks like most of you have shared and posted your research review, and I want to talk a little bit about what that experience was like for you, what the pedagogy and assumptions behind that assignment and activity are, so that you can reflect on that, the strategy there. We're going to have a kind of an open space to talk about your final project or research papers that you're working on, whatever you're working on. We're going to have some open space for that. And I thought it would be nice, given that the topic for this week is research explorations, to talk a little bit about the relationship between research, library and information services practice, and the relationship between research and practice. And so I also thought that it would be a great idea for us to develop a list of myths and misinformation and try to see if we can clear out the myths about research. So I thought it would be good for us to have a kind of total transparency around what is research in LAS, what's the story about research and its relationship to practice. So then we're kind of setting up for what's happening next week, because next week we make our foray into adolescent literature, and I am really thrilled that we're going to be reading Judy Hayne and Jeffrey Kaplan's book, Teaching Young Adult Literature Today, which has a ton of relevance to both school and public librarians who are working with adolescents. So we're going to kind of set ourselves up for that and kind of think about the rest of the semester in relation to our focus on youth genres. So let's go to the class page for today. Let's see if I can find that and share my screen. Oh, I guess I do want to talk a little bit with you first about your Twitter experience. So you guys have been Twittering up a storm. Now you probably have a deeper feeling about its strengths and weaknesses. What happened there? I just lost. Did I just lose you? Are you guys gone?
You're looking at your screen.
You see me looking at my screen? Why don't I see my screen? My screen went completely black. Oh my God.
How did that
when that happens? Okay, I'm getting a message that says unable to connect to the internet, which is really peculiar. So hold on here. I got to try to figure out how to escape out of this. So why don't you guys vamp and tell me a little bit about what did you notice? Many of you were really actively participating in Twitter this week. What did you notice about that experience? What are you learning from the Twitter dialogue with your LSC 531 students?
Well, it's a lot of fun.
What do you mean?
That's one thing. Well, you know, to get feedback so immediately when you're putting out a tweet, of course, it's from our classmates, which is great. And it just kind of keeps the flow of the class going.
Yeah, I'm feeling it too. Actually, I'm liking the flow of it keeping the class glowing. I've put up on the screen now one of the tools that I use to participate in Twitter. I really love it. If you haven't discovered it yet, I suggest you try it. It's fun. It's called TweetDeck. And so you can find that at tweetdeck.com. It used to be an independent service, but then it was bought by Twitter for gazillions of dollars. Let me show you how it works. Basically, it allows me to monitor several streams of conversation with my different discourse communities. So you can see in the first column, I've got my EdChat RI friends. You might not know this, but the very first professional development community using Twitter were the Rhode Island Twitterers, led by Don Miller, principal.
Can you guys hear her?
No,
I
went
can't.
offline again.
I still see her screen, but I don't hear her.
I'm going to write in the chat maybe to let her know.
Good idea.
Good idea. I think she probably lost her connection again, just like earlier. Oh, there she is.
Aha! Wow! That's the first time that's ever happened, but it's kind of cool to see that I could get I got a your internet connection is lost message. And then isn't that weird so what happened? You saw me disappear and then I just reappeared?
We saw your screen still there, but your voice went away, and then you went away.
Bizarre. Okay, well now I'm back. So I'm really loving TweetDeck because it allows me to monitor multiple strands. And so, are you guys seeing me, or are you seeing the screen now? You're seeing my screen?
Seeing you.
You're seeing me. I'm gonna take you back to my screen. I hope I don't lose you this time. We'll just see. You know, technology. I'm gonna try to take you back to my screen. Let's see here. Let me try that. See if that works. Okay, cool. Can you guys see my TweetDeck page right now?
Yes.
So the hashtag EdChatRI is a really cool one to monitor. Although there's a lot of Rhode Islanders on that stream, there's a lot of people from all over the country, and they have a chat every Sunday night. I think it's at 7 o'clock or at 8 o'clock, and Commissioner Deborah Gist is always on it. So whenever I want to chat with Debbie Gist, I just show up on Sunday night and I chat with her. And she's pretty amazing. It's a real on Sunday, August 3rd. So if you joined EdChatRI, you could show up. It might be good for networking and job seeking if you're looking to connect up with the school leaders. Most of these folks are principals or technology leaders, but there's a lot of principals on this list. Of course, I'm monitoring your conversation through LSC 531, and it was a pretty great conversation. I'm really pleased that I see evidence that you're talking to each other, and you're making a lot of connections. Like, for instance, Matthew Banning, when he was tweeting about the video about academic research, said, "Sometimes I wish the news media would learn that correlation does not mean causation," making a connection between reading academic research and then reading news reports about academic research. I'm also monitoring this really interesting community called Museum Next. These are museum educators who are all over the world who are thinking about the future of museums in a digital age. And I just got back from the ISTE conference. That was pretty amazing. And look at how many tweets just in the past few days, weeks, and minutes. ISTE stands for the International Society for Technology and Education. There were 14,000 people there. and there were a lot of librarians. Even though it was held at the very same time as the American Library Association conference in Las Vegas, there were still a lot of librarians there. And I'm going to share with you some of what I learned from that community, because the librarians who participate in ISTE are pretty darn amazing. At the same time I was at the ISTE conference, I was monitoring the ALA. I was monitoring the ALA stream to especially pay attention to what the YALSA folks, the YALSA and the media literacy librarians were writing about. And it looks like there was a lot of really cool stuff happening at American Library Association, and I'm really hoping to get a good brief from Catherine Damiano about that. But clearly, to me, it looks like most of the people who were tweeting at ALA were the vendors. And some librarians too, right? Some librarians. So let's go back to our main. Let's go back to our main class homepage. Here we are. I'm going to see if it's going to get it to load up. And I'd love to start this session by having you tell me a little bit about your process of selecting and composing a research review. I can see from your blogs that some of you are doing print reviews, and some of you are doing video screencasts. But all of you manage the challenge of selecting a piece of academic research and writing a research review. Why don't we just go around the room and talk a little bit about what you observed about the process of completing this assignment. What'd you like about it? What'd you hate about it? What'd you find yourself thinking about as you completed this project for this week? Who'd like to begin?
I will.
Thank you.
So, of course, I will. Oh, Jane, are you trying to say something?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I work in a school library, so of course I will find something about school library. And then initially, I was thinking of doing something, multimedia tools and things like that. Library, Web 2.0, 3.0, whatever that is, and how they are related to students and how they can use these tools to enhance their any kind of work or project. That was where I was trying to cut in, because there's so many gazillion articles out there. So I narrowed down to this, and I put some new keywords in, like multimedia, media literacy, digital literacy, and then I went through the full text, and then found one that looked easier to me because of my English and all that. And then I picked this one. It's published in 2008, and I said, oh gosh, it may be too old. But then I read it. I said, oh my God, everything still applies to what we're studying now, what's going on now. So I said, I love it. So that's how I chose that. And then in the beginning, I definitely decided to write it up because the screencasting thing I've never done before. But I saw Kyle's video, and I said, hey, he can do it. Then I can do it too. So I started to go through all these little niches, because the sign up, the download, it didn't work for me online. So I had to download the application onto my hard drive and then do it. Mm-hmm. So after all that, I did it. I did it with the Screencast-O-Matic, and I loved it. The only thing is I was trying to re-record and then cut this off, because I did write up everything first. It's like a script I write up, because there's no way I can talk like real time coming out my mouth like that. So I had a little draft for me to look at, but fitting in the free version is 15 minutes, so it only allowed me to do 15 minutes, and I wrote up a little bit more than that, so I cut and revised and all that. So eventually I did do it, and then the only thing left with me is a sore throat.
Whoa, okay, got it. So you definitely got a sore throat from the experience. Can you tell us a little bit, give us a little tease about why we should watch your screencast? What big insights are we going to find about this research article, how it contributes to knowledge in the field?
Oh, it's basically about Web 2.0, how school libraries should use all those tools to help students. And I think the title is about transformative pedagogy of school library 2.0. I did all that literature review. Now I can't think of it. I think both of them, two authors. All right, hold on. My computer is running out of battery. So these two professors from two different colleges in Canada were they used okay. They were looking at the new learners and the new literacy, because new learners meaning these digital natives. And then they looked at new literacies. What are new literacies? Before it was just probably reading and writing and something like that. But now it's more. It's online things and all other multimedia things. And then after that, it's new how teachers would study about this new learner thing and the new literacy thing, and how the new concepts of knowledge is before the knowledge before this era, and the new concept of knowledge, what that is. So the authors will talk going into these three areas and just did a lot of analysis, and they read a lot of literatures too.
Cool.
It's a very well-rounded short piece. It's 18 pages including.
I'm really pleased that you got introduced to the concept of transformativeness.
Yes.
At the conference that I just attended, there was a lot of conversation about, do we use new technologies to do the same thing we've always done in school?
Yes.
Or do we use new technologies to do some different kind of teaching and learning? That turns out to be a very highly relevant topic, so I'm glad you tackled it. Yes. Jane, how about if you talk to us a little bit about your experience in selecting a research article and the process of writing or creating a review?
Well, I went with what I'm doing for my research project, and I started looking at summer reading programs in high schools and trying to find research that's been done with that. And what I kept finding in looking for scholarly literature was that a lot of the research has been done in middle school and in elementary schools, and not nearly as much has been done in high schools. And I thought it was interesting, because that's where I feel like the disconnect really kind of happens in middle school, and then it carries over into high school. So how do you get those kids back? Well, first of all, you want to prevent them from ever, leaving reading as a leisure activity. But how do you draw them back once they're gone? I did find one research paper, and it was talking about motivation. How do you? It was assessing high school students' motivation in participating in a voluntary summer reading program. And it sounded as if the school that they were working with didn't have a summer reading program, and so they kind of charged the assistant principal with creating a summer reading program. And the researchers came in and they developed a survey instrument. They started off the first year with just kind of a bunch of questions and things like that, and narrowed it down, and then tweaked the instrument after that first year. And then for the second year, the school tweaked their summer reading program, which basically involved creating a list of high interest leisure reading you know, nothing canonical or anything like that, to try and get these kids back involved in reading. So, and then they came back. Oh, and the books were given to the students for free, which was a nice piece of it, because in terms of the socioeconomic conditions within the school, it kind of leveled the playing field for everyone. So the kids really liked that they got the books for free. And then they came back in the fall and did book discussion groups with teachers leading the discussion. And one of the goals that it looked like from the article was that they wanted collaboration within the student group, within their peer groups. And I think they were trying to get that through these book talks when they come back in the fall. But the kids didn't connect with that. They didn't see that as, something that they found as beneficial as some of the other stuff, such as, getting to choose their book and, having these kind of contemporary pieces to choose from. So I thought it was interesting. And I took that and could kind of run with it in terms of ideas for my project, where the collaboration piece, this is where the social media comes in. This is where, while the kids are reading and they read a passage that really strikes them, they could, tweet to their friends or be like, oh my God, you won't believe this part that I just read, and kind of generate some excitement through that. So.
Right. It's interesting. I was delighted to hear you describe that research and looking forward to reading your review. I was really pleased the way you described this idea that when the researchers came in at the beginning, the project was just beginning and they were just trying to figure out how to document what's happening. And
right.
I think one of the big myths that sometimes people who are not researchers might not understand is that people think we know what we're doing. But the reality is that's why we're doing research, because we have no idea, right? That's what research is. You don't know. And you just bumble along and you bumble through it, and then you try to build a little bit of knowledge from your ignorance. So your description sounds like they didn't know much. Then as they gathered more information and they talked to the kids, they learned more, and they found some surprising things. Right?
And one of the things that I said in my analysis was I really appreciated the fact that the researchers went back, as did the school. At the end of the summer reading program, they went back and they really thought about how it went, what kinds of things, what kind of changes they could make to make improvements, to make it better, to get more kids involved, to get them more motivated. And the researchers, tweaked the survey so that they could get answers to questions that, we really wanted to know. So.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like a really good example of research that is trying to inform practice.
Yes.
Jenny, can you talk to us a little bit about how you selected the piece that you chose to review? Tell us about how you selected it, what the piece was, and what insights you gained from about the research process.
So the article that I chose, I wanted to choose something to go with my research project, which is dealing with SEPA, the Children's Internet Protection Act, because I was really struck by the beginning of the course of being a mom. I would think anything like that would be a great thing, because you want to protect children from inappropriate things that they may come in contact, and then realizing, oh wait, that might not be such a great thing as much as it sounds great. So I'm really looking into the background of SEPA, understanding it more, and really if it's effective or not, and how is it affecting libraries and teaching and internet evaluation and critical thinking of kids. And so when I was looking for the article, I really wanted to find a scholarly article, and so I was really looking for an article that had all those elements, the abstract, the references, kind of, a whole methodology, all of those aspects. And I found, and I also wanted to look at something that was dealing with the effects. Did anyone really investigate the effects of SEPA, is it working the way that they wanted it to work? And I found this really neat article, kind of in an unrelated journal, in the Journal of Applied Developmental Psychology, and it was really a well done study. And this author, his last name was Jan, compared high school students to college undergraduates to see whether or not working within a restricted internet environment versus a non-restricted internet environment, whether or not basically whether or not SEPA was working, whether those high schoolers were being exposed to inappropriate. I really liked his style of writing. I thought he was really great, very clear, and he was very methodical, very step-by-step in everything he did. And his two study groups were, about 200 kids each, same demographics, very well laid out. And interestingly, he did it soon after SEPA kind of went in a few years after. So those college undergraduates really weren't affected by SEPA when they were in high school, and so then the ones that were in high school were. So he kind of laid that out, and I thought that was kind of a unique situation that he was able to do that. And he had a great literature review, and he really discovered that it doesn't really have the effects that they wanted, that those high schoolers are getting their inappropriate internet interaction either at home or through community computers or through friends and that sort of thing. So as much as we think that maybe we need to protect the kids from this internet inappropriate content, what we need to do is kind of educate parents and the community learners to help teach teens how to navigate the internet effectively, and make them aware of what's on there. And one last thing that I thought was really great that he owned up to was the fact that you really can't do a true experiment because you cannot expose teenagers to inappropriate internet content, which seems so elementary, but it's true. You can't do that. So it was a really great article. It was kind of a stepping stone for me for my research project. I really enjoyed it.
Wow, what a fascinating summary, and I especially appreciate how your description of this research helps me visualize. I feel like I have an expectation now of what to find in your research review, but I also really appreciate how you recognize the limitations of research, right? That he used it was an opportunity, right? The serendipity that SIPA had just come in and was able kids to younger kids, and that was kind of an accident, and that other ways of testing whether filtering is effective are kind of have ethical challenges and can't be done. That researchers are always working within the constraint of their situation. We can't do it. We can't do a perfect experiment, and we don't have access to exactly what we need. So we kind of have to jimmy rig, for whatever the limitations of our situation are. And this guy sounds like he had a really creative jimmy rig where he was able to compare the college kids to the high school kids in a way where the comparison was really meaningful. So sometimes people think researchers can control all the variables and do all the and it's like we can't, but we can still do meaningful work even with those crazy constraints. And this article sounds like it. So Lisa, the article that you chose to review, what it was about and how it's made you think about the practice of research.
Well, I originally started out attempting to do a research article to help hone in on my final project research paper, and I wasn't really finding anything on a particular aspect of collection development and weeding, and so I decided to just really go head on into reading and analyzing developing library collections for today's young adults by Amy Petit, which is part of our course. And I just decided that that would be the best. Yay! And I decided that I would buy this book electronically, which is like, I'm sure everyone's like rolling their eyes, so everybody reads ebooks, but this is like a serious book, and to not hold the book and be able to see the table of contents and the index and all the chapters and everything really was a stretch for me. But I made myself do everything electronically, and it just was a very different experience in that way. Besides the content, I mean, I've been doing collection development for, you know, a really long time, so I think I'm a pretty good judge of whether an author knows what they're talking about. And Amy Petit is like, I wish I would have had this book when I was a young librarian for collection development practices, because she really does describe best practices, and she also defines new models for, you know, managing collections. And of course she particularly focused on young adult collections, and that was just fascinating to me because there's so many different genres and options for young people. And then about how this type of literature spills over into the adult population because of the series like Harry Potter and the Twilight Saga. So that's, you know, kind of how I got into this book, and I basically wrote a book review.
Cool.
I purposely also chose it because no one that I could find has written a book review on this. So I thought, well, that's great, because then it's like I'm really going out on a limb, because I'm not like a book reviewer or anything, but I decided I'm going to be the first one.
Now, so what's absolutely amazing about this, Lisa, is that because you are the first person to write a book review, this book was just published this year. So this is the most hot off the press book we could possibly imagine reading. Now, I would like you to consider how you get that book review published. So we're going to try to see if we can get you into print with this baby, because
I hope I like everybody to read it to make sure it's
the iron is hot
off the wall. No, I'm sure. I mean, I think it's pretty good. I really do.
Well, isn't it easy to publish it to Amazon and Goodreads at least?
Well, you know,
right.
Probably. Or like the New York Times book review. I might as well start at the top.
That one you have to try harder.
Well, I was very, very fortunate when I was at ISTE in Atlanta to be able to have dinner with the executive editor of School Library Journal. That's Kathy Ishikuza, who's a friend of mine. And of course, you know this journal pretty well. It is the journal of the school library field. And so we had a lot of conversation. I talked to her about you guys and what I was thinking about and how we were learning. And I think we can use her as a resource to ping her to see maybe School Library Journal will accept this book review or a version of this book review. And I would say that's starting at the top. The New York Times will never. This isn't a book that's targeted to them, but School Library Journal would be best and highest in terms of your career and in terms of the target audience. So we'll take a look at your review and see if we can get it ship-shape for publication. I'm glad you thought of that opportunity. Okay, so we've got some ideas about how complicated and limited and yet meaningful the research process is to the work of practitioners. So we now have about a 5-minute space of conversation for you to ask any questions that you want to ask about your own research project, or any naive and silly questions that you always wondered about when it came to research, but never had a opportunity to have somebody tell you the truth. So this is just an open 5-minute window for you to talk about questions that you might have about your own project or questions that you've always wondered to know about academic research in relation to librarianship.
I just have a question about the publishing part of a research article. How many people actually read the article, and how long is the back and forth? Like if for a peer-reviewed article, is it a certain amount of people have to read it, like 3 people, or is it the editor and one other person? And then how much editing really goes on in that process? Is it a lot of editing, or is it just like quick edits before something gets published?
Oh, that's a great question. Great question. Great question. The answer is it depends on the level of the journal, the selectivity of the journal, and it depends on your own piece, right? So I have had experiences where I've handed in a research publication, and within 3 months, it was published. The reviews came back. The reviews said, "This is amazing," and boom, it was published. 3 months. No feedback. No feedback that said publish it as is. But then I've also had experiences where if it's not rejected, you get something called a revise and resubmit. It says these 3. Usually it's 2 or 3 reviewers. They offer you feedback. In the best journals, you can expect that to be 3 single-spaced typed pages of comments for each reviewer. So you're looking at, when you get the reviews back, you're looking at very dense feedback. Everything that says you made all these mistakes that you can't correct in your study design, to you forgot about this author, to I didn't understand this section, what are you talking about, to actually alternative interpretations of your data. So you get all this feedback. And in order to move forward in the publication process, you have to revise your manuscript, and you have to write a letter to the editor saying, here's how I am responding to the comments, to literally every sentence of the comment of the reviewer. So reviewer 1 thinks that I should do blah, blah, blah. So notice I did that on page 7. Reviewer 2 really is furious at me for the conclusion I made in page 20, and so I've nuanced that. Or reviewer 3 says I should do blah, 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 and I think that's a bunch of hog shit, and there's no way I'm doing that, and that's just tough noogies, right? So you respond to the feedback.
Do you know who's reviewing? Do you know who's reviewing? Or is it anonymous?
Oh no, they are reviewing anonymously. That's a big part of the peer review process, which is why they can be so mean, right? So sometimes they're mean and they say mean things because they're anonymous. And sometimes you can tell, once you're part of the community, you can tell who's reviewing your work, right? You can tell. Sometimes you can tell. But that process of getting the feedback, it usually takes about 4 to 6 months to get the feedback back. And then you need some time to respond and revise, right? And then it goes back to the same people who read it again, right? And so then they read it again, and either then they'll say yes. So usually it's about 2 years from start to finish. And yeah, and so lots of times you give up along the way, right? So many drawers. I have many drawers of unpublished manuscripts and many published manuscripts as well. That was a great question. Thank you for asking that question. What other questions do you have about the research process?
This is Lisa. I just wondered how you choose your topics. Like, how did you get into the field that you're in right now? What drove you to this arena, and how do you keep motivated to keep publishing and creating?
That's a really great question, and I think that I'm gonna answer your question with this is something I wanted to talk about tonight because I feel like it's important for people entering a scholarly community, as you are when you're taking a graduate class, to understand that there's a lot of different motivations for people to publish research. And there's two major motivations. And over time, you start to be able to see the difference between the motivations. Some scholars are motivated to publish and do scholarship because it's a job expectation. You know the saying, publish or perish. And so, yes, to get promoted and to get a raise, there's an expectation that you publish. And so some people publish primarily because they have to, because it's like the expectation is that they publish. They don't like doing it. It's a chore. They're not crazy about research. They do it because they have to. And after a few years of reading in a field, you can always tell. Those articles are recognizable. Somebody's publishing this because it's going to look good on their resume and it'll help them get a promotion. So from my point of view, that's kind of dumb, right? And not a good reason to be publishing. Kind of actually wasteful in a lot of ways, like not a good motivation. So the real motivation to do research is because you are intellectually curious and you want to solve a problem, right? Or you want to sort of contribute to finding answers. And so that's why basically many researchers kind of stay inside a relatively narrow terrain. You know, then they become like an expert at one thing, right? And so that's what happened to me. I got captured by media literacy when I was very young, but I was not permitted to write about it when I was getting my PhD or in the 7 years before I got tenure. I was not permitted to write about it because it was considered a not legitimate area of inquiry. And it was not a legitimate area of inquiry because nobody else had written about it. So I wasn't allowed to write about it because nobody else had written about it. I couldn't cite anybody. That was really frustrating to me. So it was only after I got to be an associate professor, you know, with tenure, that I had some freedom to write about stuff that hadn't been written about before and to do dumb little projects that started to build a little bit of a literature in the field. And it turns out that, you know, the more you know, the more questions you have, and it just kind of fuels itself, right? The process, just like the process of writing, right? You write and you think you learned something, and then it makes you have more questions. So, but it is kind of important to see if you can spot the difference between an article that was written for somebody to get promoted and an article that represents somebody who's really deep in inquiry. And that's one of the reasons why we like to use those tools that let you look at the scholar's whole body of work, right? So you can see how are they building over time, right? And how is their understanding changing as they learn more? So thanks for asking that good question. So in some ways, I feel like the journey that you're on and what's so exciting about being a graduate student is you get to satisfy your own intellectual curiosity. And that's what you should, I'm hoping that's what you're going to try to do with this final project. And I'm also hoping that you think about how this project gives you the opportunity to claim some expertise, right? And if you think about it, that's how you get a job, right? You claim some expertise that you say, I know something about weeding and collection development in adolescent literature. I know something about SIPA and its impacts of filtering in schools, right? I know something. So think about your choices as a way to like build your own expertise, because that's your value added in the job market and in your career, right? So it's almost like go for what you're interested in, right? And you'll do your best work. So that's my thought on that. Okay, so I think we're going to go back to the we're going to go back to the website because I want to show you an amazing a resource that I found, and we're going to do a little viewing and discussion. When I went to ISTE, I got to see my librarian friend Diana Locke from. She's originally from Colorado, but now she lives in Georgia. She's one of the many librarians who went to ISTE, and she told me about this really cool tool that she was using around ebooks, and I wasn't familiar with it, and I was so mad that I didn't know about it that I went and did a whole bunch of research on it. So if you go back to the home page, our minutes, and have you watch and discuss the screencast on Mac and Via. Now, is anybody familiar with Mac and Via? Raise your hand if you know, or give me a thumbs up if you are familiar with Mac and Via. No? Okay. So what I'd like you to do is watch the 5-minute screencast. It was produced by a middle school teacher as a screencast tutorial for her middle school students. So this is produced by a librarian for her middle school students. Let's turn off our cameras and our microphones, and we'll watch that 5-minute video, and I'll see you back in 5 minutes, okay? Okay, are you back? Thumbs up if you're back. Okay, I see a couple thumbs up. So, all right. So let's see if we can do a little summarizing. Based on that 5 minutes, how would you define Mac and VIA? What is Mac and VIA?
It's the ebook where I think it's like a host probably. If you have an account with them, then you have 84 books or 800 books. Doesn't matter. So they host all the books for you, and then you create your accounts and your access.
Okay, that's a pretty good description. What questions did you have after watching that ebook, after watching that screencast demonstration? What questions did that video raise for you?
I wonder what kind of licensing agreements they have with publishers that allows them to circulate those books electronically.
Good question. What other questions do you have?
I was just wondering how many people actually use it, because I've never heard of it before either, and just wondering if people are really actually using it.
Yeah, I had a freak out on that. I don't know the answer to that, but I was in a session at ISTE, and the guy said, how many of you are using Mac and VIA? And the room had probably 500 people in it, and half of the hands went up. So I was like, whoa. So that's why I was surprised. I don't know how many people are using it, but I know a fair number of people at this conference were using it. What other questions did this screencast have for you?
It's not really a question, but an observation. My consortium uses Overdrive, and it's very similar to Overdrive, but it's simpler. It's got a backpack, so it's more driven towards school use. So I can see where it would be very popular in schools. So.
Yeah, I think this is a direct competitor to the clunky Overdrive. And I saw my library friend Diana using Mac and VIA on her iPad like this. And she's an elementary librarian, and it was beautiful and seamless and intuitive, and yeah, it's definitely competing with the clunky Overdrive with the interface design. So I'm actually really fascinated at the investment that venture capitalists in the educational technology community are making in the library sector to increase the user friendliness and the interface of digital online reading practices. And I would bet that in the next 3 years, we're going to continue to see product quality improve so that the online reading experience gets better and better. One thing I was really disappointed about this little screencast is that she didn't show us what the books look like when you read them online, did she?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. She would open a book for us to read it.
So, Hyman, why didn't she do that? Why did she skip that?
Well, maybe there's something wrong with that.
Conspiracy theory. Okay, possibly.
Yeah, how easy it is to register and check out. But I was like waiting for her to click the open now, but she just couldn't do it.
So I'm going to ask you this question because it's an important question. Why didn't she open a book? In her mind, there was a reason. Why didn't she open a book in this screencast?
Because she was really operationally driven. She just wanted to show the audience how it worked.
Say more about that. Keep talking.
So that's the impression I got, was that she wanted people to learn how to use it very quickly, and she didn't think about opening a book because that's not operation oriented.
Lisa, I think you are, this is A for the day, my friend. A for the day. This very talented middle school librarian, her purpose was to introduce the tool's function, and she accomplished that goal. But because she didn't have on her radar screen engaging the kid and motivating the kid to want to try the new tool, that wasn't a priority. So the obvious engagement activity of open that book about aliens, show it to the kid, that wasn't on her radar screen because she was thinking, I'm doing a demo of a product. And sometimes it happens in all of our work that we get so fixated on the thing we think we're doing that we forget the obvious thing that's right in front of us. And I think in some ways this illustrates some of the challenges we all have to think about as reflective practitioners, to think about the complex layering of motives and goals that should be operating all the time. We're thinking about engaging and motivating and promoting intellectual curiosity and demonstrating the tool and getting them to feel confident in using it. So thank you for that. Thank you for that great insight. All right, so now I'm going to take us back to the screencast, and we're going to talk about what's happening next, because this class is going to get better and better, and here's what's going to go on next week. Take a look, if you will, at research explorations for the non-synchronous activities for this week. Because we're reading Judy Haynes and Jeffrey Kaplan's book, Teaching Young Adult Literature today, we're really pretty much focused on that. And the first activity says, using the flip grid, share 1 to 3 key ideas about what you learned by reading The Teen Whisperer and Haynes and Kaplan on young adult literature. Be sure to view the posts of previous contributors and respond to their ideas in your post. So you're going to make a flip grid where you comment on the reading. And to look at the reading, we have to go down here to the bottom where it says Reading for July 9th. Our topic is Appreciating Young Adult Genres. We're reading the first 3 chapters of Haynes and Kaplan, plus 1 additional chapter of your choice. So we're reading section 1, which has got 3 articles, but then you get to choose one of the other, there's 10 other chapters. So you might want to read about weeding. There's a chapter on weeding. Okay. There's a chapter on young adult literature and social activism. There's a chapter on LGBTQ literature. There is a chapter on digital and visual culture. There's a chapter on dystopian novels. So read the first 3 chapters. That's pages 1 to about 60, more or less, and then choose another chapter of your choice to comment on. And then I've also added this amazing article from the New Yorker on the Teen Whisperer. Can you guys give me a voice, a sign if you already have read this or you stumbled across this piece already? Any yays to folks who've encountered this piece?
No.
No. I don't know how it is that every semester when I teach, like, reality makes it more fun for me. This came out just a couple weeks ago in the New Yorker, and I almost fell over when I read it because it's about John Green and his new book, movie. And I knew we were going to be talking about John Green in this class, but I didn't know I'd have such a great article to hang it on. So I've added this to the list. It's quite a marvelous piece. So I'm taking you to it now, right? It's really a profile of how the author, oops, there's the ad, how the author of The Fault in Our Stars built an ardent army of fans. So we're going to read that book in relation to the Haynes and Kaplan book. So, okay, any questions about step one? Okay, so
Question.
yes.
So using the grid, and then talk about these two things. So it's one flip grid, but talk about these both of these work, right?
Yeah, you kind of actually, if what you have to do a good flip grid for this, Hyman, I'm really glad you're asking about this. What you have to do a really good flip grid is you have to do some synthesis.
Yeah.
You have to read The Teen Whisperer, and you have to read Haynes and Kaplan, and then you have to kind of put them together to come up with one or two, I don't know, three seems a stretch, right? One or two ideas, right? That where you share some knowledge and you share your own perspectives on that knowledge. So I'm really glad that's the trick, because you only have a minute and a half to do that, right? So yeah, so that should be fun and challenging, right? All right, so then let's go back to the screen share. The next thing I'd like you to do is watch these two videos. One is a crash course. It's about 10-minute video on the psychology of adolescence. And then the other is a review by John Green of Salinger's Catcher in the Rye, right? So the Green brothers are not just amazing writers, but they're amazing video producers. And I want you to watch both of these videos and then use the Titan pad to comment on the most interesting or important ideas that you encounter in these videos. Use this Titan pad to comment on the format of the crash course videos. So here we're separating out comment on the ideas and comment on the format of the videos. Be sure to read and comment on the ideas of others as you contribute to the dialogue. What questions do you have about this activity? Yes? No? Okay, so then we're moving to the final activity here for the week. You do owe me a little feedback. You guys have sent me an email. I've responded to many of you. What I'd like you to do is now give me a little update. You're starting to think more seriously about your final paper or creative project. I'd like you to make a very brief, this is not a big project, a brief paragraph about your project, posted on this Titan pad. In that piece, I'd like you to answer these questions. What's the focus of your project? Why is this topic important to you, and how does it relate to issues explored in the course? What have you accomplished so far? What form do you expect the project will take, and what do you anticipate will be your biggest challenges? Now, what's cool about us doing that on the Titan pad is that you get the opportunity to read the project ideas of your peers. It turns out that some of you are interested in topics that are very similar, and I'm really hoping that you get the opportunity to learn from each other and even to collaborate. So if you have suggestions or information resources or ideas that could help another student, send them along using a tweet. Does anybody have any questions about this little progress report activity?
I just had a quick question. Were we supposed to receive a response from you on our topic when you sent it the first time?
You may have.
Okay.
You may have, or you may not have. And
Okay.
if you didn't receive feedback, then what you should do is ping me tonight.
Okay.
And say, and just resend the email.
Okay.
Because what happened is that some of them got lost in my box. I responded to a lot, but I know I didn't respond to everybody. So if you didn't get feedback from me, you can put that in the email with a little urgent reline, and I'll try to make sure I comment on that right away. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think I was more focused on the reflections than I was on the emails. Other questions or comments about this progress report? Okay, cool. So then let's take a look at the very last note. It's a note about the next week's. What did I do here? I just disappeared. There we go. This is a note about class on July 16th. There will be no evening Google Hangout on Wednesday, July 16th. Instead, which is not next week, but the week after next. Instead, you're invited to attend the morning session of the Summer Institute on Digital Literacy, where we will hear a lecture by Joyce Valenza, probably the America's leading school library media specialist. The program will be held on the CCE Providence campus, 80 Washington Street in the PAF Auditorium. You may attend as my guest from 8:45 in the morning to 10 a.m. to hear her live and in person. Of course, this is an optional event, and the non-synchronous part of the course will be available as usual, right? So what questions do you have about that?
I wouldn't be able to make it, but can I join it online or something? Or do it make some kind of a test online?
I'm not sure whether or not I will be recording Joyce's lecture, so I can't at this time say that it will be recorded.
Well,
yeah.
Will it be recorded by, the organizer or whoever?
I am the organizer.
You
I
are
am the organizer. And one of the things that we're doing
with the show?
One of the things that we're doing with the Summer Institute is we are trying to create a world-class event that you have to come to Providence for, and that's why we're charging so much money to attend, and that's why we're inviting people like Joyce Valenza. So I actually, while we do put a lot of things up online, I don't want to undercut my market for people coming to this live event. So I probably won't be broadcasting it because I want people to come to the Summer Institute.
Mm-hmm. I actually have a logistical question because you say that we're coming as a guest. Do we have to check in somewhere, or how do we get in without having been paid?
Right, without having to pay. Yeah. So what will happen is your names will be on a list, and when you come to the registration desk, you'll just say, "I'm here as a guest of Renee Hobbs for LSC 531. They'll check your name off the list, and in you go. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the things that Joyce is coming for the whole week. We are really thrilled. We have 100 K-12 teachers, librarians from school and public libraries, media professionals, and college faculty. It's a very interesting group, and they're coming there's 100 of them coming. There's 50 of them coming from Rhode Island, and there's 50 of them coming from 20 other states and 10 countries, including Korea and India and Canada and other places. So it's an amazing experience. A part of the reason why I didn't want to have class that night was that I couldn't imagine that I would even be able to form a sentence after the day being so long. The day is a long day. But for that class, it will be kind of non-synchronous only. But you, my synchronous friends, are a great treasure to me, and I am really glad that you were able to join us tonight for this class. We are rocking and rolling with LSC 531. It's information competencies of youth. I'm Renee Hobbs at the Harrington School of Communication and Media and the Department of Library and Information Studies. I'll give everybody, all my live participants, one last chance to ask comments or make questions, and then we'll sign off with our typical goodbye wave. Any final comments or remarks from my live participants? You guys are going to have a great time this week reading about John Green, the Teen Whisperer, and digging deep into thinking about teaching young adult literature and all of the interesting collection development and characteristics of this important form. For some of you, I bet this next week's going to be the highlight of the week because of this cool book that we're reading. So, okay, so on behalf of all of us, let's do our wave. Thank you for joining us. Mwah. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.